You guys don't mind, I'm going to start off with item 7.3 since we've had behavioral health in the room. Let's start with that one. Consideration of general fund loan request of $3 million and loan of $1 million from Department of Social Services Realignment Fund. And with that, if we can get behavioral health to come up to take a seat. Good morning.
Is this okay? Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. Actually, would it be possible? There is an attachment on the item that I'd like to project. It is the revenue. No, it's the claims one.
The dashboard.
The dashboard. You know, there's. So. The memo hopefully, perfect, thank you. The memo hopefully describes our situation. We are well aware that this is a much less than ideal situation. However, we continue to work on a resolution of the billing issues. And I guess at this point, any questions, since the memo does describe our situation, so any questions we can help to clarify that. And with me, I have Christine Andrus, who's our Deputy Director over Administration, as well as Amber Madero, Amber Madero, who is our Fiscal Manager.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions based on the information provided for the item? I see no questions or comments.
I think,
Vice Chair Crandall?
yeah. So just reading through it, I was just asking, I wanted to ask just one thing, is that if we're not able to get reimbursed by them sooner, do we just ask for another amount or something? How does that work?
That's a great question. Receive?
I wouldn't, I would hope.
Can you speak in your microphone?
I would hope with what we currently have, that we are billing and that we have fixed, we are getting in a regular routine of billing monthly now, that with corrected claims that are going up and coming back, that we wouldn't have to come back and ask for more.
Okay.
Further to that, I would offer that we'd be happy to come back on a schedule that you all determine if you wish to give an update about this. But it's hard to foretell, but as best as we can foretell it, we believe that we shouldn't have to come back and ask for more money.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? So I will make some comments. First and foremost, this is not an issue within the department. I just want to make that clear that this is an issue with state reform, state changes that have not panned out in the cleanest, most efficient ways for us to be reimbursed. I did reach out to CSAC to ask about what's CSAC doing about this. In fact, I appreciate you bringing this to us because CSAC was not necessarily very well aware of this situation, but has found further information to say, yes, this is a known problem. Nobody's really reached out from other counties asking CSAC for help. I didn't ask for help, just checking in to see if they were already taking any initiative to try to advocate for counties to get things changed. There's definitely no promises that things will be resolved. In fact, we already provided some of the reserves for you to help out with a similar situation. I think the situation has evolved. It's not exactly where we were back. I think that was November or December that we did that.
That's correct.
And so I do worry about the state, the conversation we just had with the deficits and the cuts. Granted, these are bills that have been appropriately and timely provided that should be paid within the fiscal year that we're requesting to get paid from. And I'll just be blunt, I don't have much faith that the state cares to hurry. I think we will get our money in the long run, but I don't know that they care to hurry. So I think that I know you and I talked about this, about the potential coming from the board schedule. I'd love to hear monthly from behavioral health of where we are, because right now we're looking at a total of $4 million with help from general fund, help from social services, and a little tiny portion from health services as well. And that's to cover us all the way through June. And I think we need to be aware of when do we need to transition to, and I don't even want to know what that transition looks like, because it's unfortunate that that means decrease of services of some kind of how to deal with this if they're not paying us. I don't even know what that looks like, but none of it sounds good to me. And I don't even know what that should look like. But I think if we continue to have the conversation to stay apprised as to things are changing, things are not changing, then that can provide us the need to put together a committee to meet with our state delegates, to bring something up further up the ladder at CSAC, whatever that case might be. But I just, that's it. What you provide is important. I don't want to lose what you provide. But eventually, there's not much more that can be provided to take care of something that the state's not giving back to us without eating up other services from other departments and such. And so I think it's important that we just stay apprised as to what the status is and how we can change things if we need to change things. Supervisor Pyska?
Well, and also in the memo are these 3 steps that we need to follow up with immediately, and I think we need to be really assertive and aggressive beginning today. And given the state's financial situation, which we've been mentioning for months now, it's important that we have reserves and we maintain reserves, because this could just be one of many situations that come. And so I'm glad that we have been really fiscally conservative over the last couple of years, building up our reserves so that we have the ability to cover through these difficult times. So, file the complaint with the Mental Health Advisory Service Authority, report the situation to the California Board of Health Directors Association, explore support available from our state legislative delegation and CSAC and RCRC, and just hit it as hard as we can starting today.
Thank you for those comments. I agree. Just as a note as well, we're kind of continuing to do information gathering with other counties that are involved in this system. And so far, all other counties are experiencing the same challenges. Amber has really taken the lead on that. Even counties that purchased revenue and billing services, which we did not, because we have always done it and very successfully, they have the same issues. So it doesn't appear to matter who's doing the billing. It's still not going through. And of course, I'm really glad for you to reach out. We'll continue this, but it is kind of wild because of the 1.5 billion claims that are registered in the system beginning July 1st of last year, of the fiscal year, only about 30% of that has been paid out to counties. So where is the others? Counties have got to be feeling that pinch somewhere. So I feel like we're probably the first to come forward. It's an uncomfortable position to be in, and but we've done our very best, and so we can say that we've done our best, and this is just our position. So that's hopefully this, I don't want to say opens the floodgates for other counties to come forward, but I kind of hope that it does, because we're stronger together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, Supervisor Green?
Just playing devil's advocate, in the memo, it notes that other counties have suspended payments to the contracted providers. Obviously, we don't want to do that, but that seems to be the more common practice than what is being proposed here. So just for my own education and the public's education, why not suspend payments to contractor providers, or alternatively, why not suspend or throttle back new services? Because it sounds like we're going to get some traction finally with this new payment system. So right now it's just all loan all the time. I'm just curious, are there internal billing practices such as suspending or throttling back new services that could be considered or should be considered. And I'm only asking that because other counties have not chosen to proceed as you're proposing today.
Well, can I just answer? I don't think we want to get into a situation where we're defaulting on our contracts,
Yeah. The
ever.
biggest impact of pulling back services would be our children. So you would have RCS children, foster care children, LCOE, Lake County Office of Education children. Those are the big ones that we bill on that we would have to, that have thanked us for not pulling back on our contracting because RCS has been impacted for not being paid already by other counties. So it would be our children who are affected if we pulled back on our contracted providers.
It's also our, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Please.
It's also our hospital bills.
Yeah.
And we're working on some data to present about that. But it appears that our hospital costs have dramatically increased, and that's due to both rate changes but also utilization. And so the increase in expense that everybody is feeling right now is where we feel that, and we see that too. Expenses have increased across the board for all services, and so there could be some advocacy we could take. I don't know how successful to pause increases in rates with the hospitals, but they have their own lobbying, so I don't know. We're also impacted, and I just want to give a heads up that the Department of State Hospitals, where we put some of our most sick and also dangerous people, those who are on Murphy's conservatorships, which is like they committed a felony that's pretty bad and they have to go to the state hospital because they're incompetent to stand trial. We presently have 3 people at the state hospital. And last year they implemented a sanction program where if you went over your quota, which our quota is 2, that you would get a sanction. And so that sanction is about $100,000 per person. And so we are probably going to be sanctioned as well. They are going, and this is just the whole fiscal portrait here, and it's something I'm going to bring next week when I go with CBHDA to lobbying day, because effectively what the state hospitals lobbied for was to put the pressure back on behavioral health systems to stop people from being conserved and stop people from being so sick, which is pretty wild because it's like going to a group of oncologists and saying, you know what, it's your fault that cancer rates are so high, and then sanctioning them for the amount of cancer patients that they treat. That's exactly what's happening here. You would never do that to any other healthcare system, yet these are the kinds of things that happen to behavioral health. So really, when we get Murphy's conservatorships, the system has failed so many times, so far upstream, and then it becomes our problem. So there's a lot of work around that, but we will see a fiscal impact of that, I'm quite sure.
And I don't agree that we should follow what other counties are doing. I think defaulting, we struggle enough to get the relationships to provide the services because most of those services are out of county. So we have a very indirect relationship that has to be built up over the many years. By defaulting, we're basically saying we can trickle this down to be a burden for you, not to be a burden on us. And obviously, that's what's happening to us already. We should not behave in the same way and pass that burden on. I think eventually, maybe if things go really for way too long, we need to all have a conversation and say, how can we continue to work together, rather than us just saying, nah, you're good. We're not going to give you anything. We have a contract. We have to. We should be bound by that contract and shouldn't just breach the contract because we can. So I don't want to go there, but I think that I'm going to look first for consensus on getting a monthly update to know where we are, if everybody's okay with
Yes.
getting that. I have a couple of questions left. One of them is, and thank you for the response that you provided me, Director Jones, that some of the reserves that was used for the previous situation with the electronic health records not functioning appropriately that were part of that pilot program, that some of that was placed back in the reserves. My question is, why aren't your reserves being utilized today in addition to what else you're asking versus just general fund and social services realignment?
So the reserves were used already. This is after our reserves being used. So last year's fiscal impact, the reserves went back in, but currently our reserves have been used. The deficit is with our reserves included.
So we
Okay.
paid it back and then we had to use it again.
So I misunderstood, or I only got the timeline till it came back in.
Yeah, so last year we didn't end up using all of our reserves for us not being able to bill last year's services. And so, yeah, the reserves have been, this is after the reserves being used right now.
Okay. And there's an equity issue in anything that's going to impact your department that I'm very worried about. It's maybe it's offensive what I'm about to say, but it's those that struggle the most that are going to be impacted the most, which seems to be the typical process of how we do things when we have to look at what do we have to change to stay within the black. And so I'm very concerned about what all of this means. I know that I'm not I'm not comfortable saying yes to all the way through June 30th, but as long as we can meet every 30 days and reorganize our thought process and our potential future actions on how to change and how to pivot, then I'm going to be okay with saying yes today, but I'm very uncomfortable with just saying all the way through rather than what's already done in the past. So I think the conversation you bring up, Supervisor Green, a part of that I disagree on the defaulting, but the other part about services, if it's not services from behavioral health, it'll be services from somebody else eventually, because there's only so much that we can do to provide assistance until this problem is solved. So I'll leave it at that at this moment in time, but it looks like we have consensus to come back every 30 days, and hopefully the next 30 days will solve this problem. That would be great. Anything further,
Yeah.
Supervisor? Vice Chair.
Yes, no, my question was just in general, and I will, when we have member issues at RCRC, I'll bring it up, because I know that they're all probably dealing with this as well, all the other rural counties. And so yeah, I'll see what I can do there too, get it on the radar.
Thank you.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just in addition to the other 3 bullet points that you're going to initiate, the contracted providers are the major beneficiaries of the action being proposed here today, and they don't necessarily have motivation to join in the party of advocating for statewide reform. So if you can at least signal, some of these nonprofits may be in different counties and they're getting a hit. I think you mentioned RCS was getting hit elsewhere. I just don't want to signal to these contractor providers that just because we're fortunate enough to have a loan amount to cover this, that they don't have a horse in this race, and that they should be doing their own advocacy to smooth this out. Because it is fortunate that we can do this, but I guess the reason many other counties are not able to do that is we can't count on that. So definitely the providers have some need to advocate on this.
I don't have a problem with that. The louder we can make our voice be, the better. And in the long run, it's looking at their bottom line as well to advocate with us.
Yes, due to the good relationships that we've built with our contracted providers, we can, have those conversations with them, and I suspect they would be supportive.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Let's open it up for public. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? See no one in the chamber. We do have Patrick Sullivan, who may be speaking of liquidity.
Good morning. The issue I wanted to raise, and it's not specific, I guess, just to this topic, but with the state in general being delayed in making their payments, is that there is an impact on our treasury pool in this, in that when we loan money to the state, we do lose out on the earnings associated with that. And as the state goes deeper into deficit, if they start delaying across multiple programs like this, traditionally they have not recouped, we have not recouped any sort of earnings loss from them. And so on $5 million, for instance, over the course of the year on our current rate, that's going to work out to about $150,000 in general fund impact. So I realize we're a rock and a hard place, and I'm not I'm not saying the board should do anything different, but I think it's just something I hope we can keep in mind as we work with the state, because this impact will continue to expand across programs.
And while you're there, Mr. Sullivan, I kind of jokingly said that you may speak on liquidity, but that was a question that I had in my mind is that we do have some of our reserved funds in some, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever the term is for the funds that have been invested, $4 million. Just want to check in real quick as far as its availability, especially over the course of the next 2 to 3 months.
We can definitely field the $4 million. I think my concern would be is if the same request is going to start coming from other programs as well, I definitely would want to be aware of it, because we would potentially need to restructure and make some decisions over the next few months about how we're going to approach it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's just where I'd say if we're talking to the state, there's a very real impact here on another front.
And I do know I spoke to Director Jones about this in my 20 years ago when doing medical billing. There is precedence for interest for payments that have been held onto for a certain amount of period, and I think that we should be looking into that as well, because we are having to do things right now that are slightly uncomfortable. Glad that it's available, but very uncomfortable to do, and especially if we're missing out on investment opportunities as well, that this is an impact, other indirect impacts as well. And so I don't know what that means or what that will end up being, but definitely I think that should be a topic to discuss as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and close public input since there's no more hands in the Zoom room or in the chamber, and bringing it back to the board. And at this moment in time, I know it says that we are going to approve. Are we doing both this approval and the next approval as well? I'm looking at CAO Parker, or maybe I should be looking at Ms. Moreno.
I was gonna, if right now you're just doing the 7.3, which is to enable. The 7.3, which is to agree to enable and move forward with the resolution, and then we'll bring KC up for the actual action of offering the resolution.
So basically, the motion for this opens up the next item.
Correct, sir.
I know it says loan, which is a little awkward in the sense that loans usually come with a term and come with some other, it feels more like a borrowing between departments. What's the terminology here? And
we are using the term loan because it is going to be paid back in 12 months, but we are not doing interest rate or anything.
okay, so 12 months is the term at this moment in time.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's really an accounting adjustment, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I'll move to approve the fund loan request of $3 million in loan, of $1 million for Department of Social Services Realignment Fund, with the caveat of having monthly meetings or updates or something like that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I need to ask for just a quick clarification. Is the $1 million Social Services Realignment Fund inclusive of the $130,000 from Health Services, or does that need to be called out separately? And I apologize for,
It can be called out separately. It is not part of the 1 million.
okay, but we need to add it in there because, okay.
Correct.
If it's possible to amend the motion?
Yes, I'll amend the motion to add separately $130,000. Is that accurate? All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.